So today I want to talk to you about domain number 1 under the CISSP exam, security and risk management. This domain covers various topics such as the ISC squared code of ethics, as well as organizational code of ethics. It also covers different security principles such as confidentiality, integrity, and availability, as well as non-repudiation and authenticity. This domain covers risk assessments, risk analysis, risk response. It's a very foundational topic that you need to have a firm grasp on because it accounts for 15% of the total weight of questions on the CISSP exam. Tap in with me. We got 30 minutes. Deep dive. Domain 1. CISSP. Hyper black. Let's get it.
Domain 1. Security and Risk Management. Concepts of confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Module 1. Module Objectives. 1. Explain the concepts of confidentiality, integrity, and availability. 2. Differentiate between confidentiality, integrity, and availability. The CIA Triad. Confidentiality. Only authorized entities have access to the data. Integrity. There are no unauthorized modifications of the data. Availability. Authorized entities can access the data when and how they are permitted to do so. CIA Triad examples. A lock on a safe provides confidentiality. Version control provides integrity. Backups provide availability. Module 2. Organizational/corporate governance. Module Objectives. 1. Recognize security governance principles. 2. Describe how the security function of an organization aligns to that organization's business strategy, goals, mission, and objectives. 3. Describe various typical roles and responsibilities related to security within organizations. 4. Identify governance processes within organizations and how those may affect security. 5. Identify specific security control frameworks based on a brief description or list of framework attributes. 6. Discern between the concepts and meaning of due care and due diligence. Security governance principles. Governance, the process of how an organization is managed. This includes all aspects of how decisions are made for that organization and can, and usually does, include the policy, roles, and procedures the organization uses to make those decisions. Security governance, the entirety of the policies, roles, and processes the organization uses to make security decisions. Just as each organization has its own unique governance structure, it will also have security governance specific to its purposes and objectives. Aligning the security function to the organization's business strategy, goals, mission, and objectives. Security is a support function, with exceptions for security companies. The security practitioner must understand how the organization functions, then determine how the security department can help the organization meet its goals. Bad security practices can negatively impact the organization as much as, or more than, the attacks they're intended to prevent. Organizational processes. Each organization will determine its own decision-making process. Some organizations use a governance committee. Some business decisions can affect security. Acquisitions. Mergers. Divestitures. Organizational roles and responsibilities. Sample security roles include senior management, CEO/COO/CIO/CSO/CTO/CFO, etc. Security manager/officer/director. Security personnel. Administrators/technicians. Users. Security control frameworks. ISO 27001, 27002. COBIT control objectives for informational and related technology. ISSCA maintains this framework. ITIL IT Infrastructure Library, Best Practices for IT Service Management, began with the British government. RMF Risk Management Framework. NIST SP 800-37 and SP 800-53. CSA Star Cloud Services Alliance. Star Ratings for Cloud Service Providers. 27002, Codes of Practice, Best Practice Recommendations on Information Security Management for use by those responsible for initiating, implementing or maintaining the ISMS. 27002 has 14 separate areas it addresses: information security policies, organization of information security, human resource security, asset management, access control, cryptography, physical and environmental security, operations security, communications security, is acquisition/development/maintenance supplier relationships, information security, incident management, business continuity management, compliance. Due care/due diligence. Due care, what the organization owes its customers. Due diligence, any activity used to demonstrate or provide due care. Module 3. Risk management concepts. Risk management concepts. Risk, the possibility of damage or harm and the likelihood that damage or harm will be realized. Acceptable risk, the level of risk, and if a particular risk is suitable relative to the rewards offered by conducting operations. Asset valuation. Determining the value of the organization's assets. Assets. Tangible, things intangible, intellectual property people. Liquid, cash/negotiable items. Value metrics. Monetary. Relative. Asset valuation, continued. Business impact analysis, BIA measures the value of an asset, the threats and risks posed to by the asset, and the impact of the organization if the asset were affected. Used in other aspects of security, as well. Identify threats and vulnerabilities. Threats, any aspects that create a risk to the organization, its function, and its assets, for example. Natural. Criminal. User error. Vulnerabilities, any aspects of the organization's operation that could enhance a risk or the possibility of a risk being realized, for example. Software. Physical. Personnel. Risk assessment/analysis. Risk is often rated according to 3 factors. Impact. Likelihood. Exposure. 2 risk assessment/analysis common methods. Qualitative. Quantitative. Risk response. General risk management options include avoidance, acceptable, mitigation, transfer, risk response continued, residual risk, risk that remains after the security controls are put into place. Security controls. Security controls, methods, tools, mechanisms, and processes used in risk mitigation. Safeguards, before risk is realized. Countermeasures after. All security controls have a detrimental impact on operations. Control selection must entail a cost/benefit analysis. Security control selection, a traditional model. Single loss expectancy, SLE, the expected negative impact related to a particular risk, the risk being assessed. Annual rate of occurrence, ARO, the number of times per year a given impact is expected, expressed as a number. Annual loss expectancy, ALE, the SLE multiplied by the ARO, which gives us the estimated annual cost related to a particular risk. Annual loss expectancy equals single loss expectancy, times the annual rate of occurrence. Model. Applicable types of controls. Technical/logical, implemented with or by automated or electronic systems. Physical, implemented through a tangible mechanism. Administrative, implemented through policy and procedure. Security control categories. Directive, controls that impose mandates or requirements. Deterrent, controls that reduce the likelihood someone will choose to perform a certain activity. Preventative, controls that prohibit a certain activity. Compensating, controls that mitigate the effects or risks of the loss of primary controls. Detective, controls that recognize hostile or anomalous activity. Corrective, controls that react to a situation in order to perform remediation or restoration. Security control categories, continued. Recovery, controls designed to restore operations to a known good condition following a security incident. Optimal control implementation requires defense in depth, also referred to as layered defense. A single type/category of control increases risk in the event of failure. Multiple types/categories of controls increases the difficulty of attack. Monitoring and measurement. After control selection, monitoring and enforcement is necessary. Ongoing/continuous. May involve a security control assessment, SCA. Reporting, to, management, regulators, from, internal monitoring, auditors, third-party monitoring. Should include continuous improvement efforts. Monitoring and measurement, continued. Vulnerability assessments. Penetration testing. Risk frameworks. ISO, International Standards Organization. ISO 31000 Risk Management Principles and Guidelines. ISO 27005 IT Security Risk Management. COSO, Committee of Sponsoring Organizations, ERM Framework for Financial Reporting Irregularities and Fraud. ISSPC, Information Systems Audit and Control Association. Risk IT, Connect Strategic Risk Management W/IT Risk Management. NIST, National Institute for Standards and Technology. RMF, Risk Management Framework. Special Publication, SP 800-37. Apply risk-based management concepts to the supply chain. Every organization has security dependencies with external entities, vendors, suppliers, customers, contractors. Risk management methodologies should be applied to all of these entities, possibly including governance review, site security review, formal security audit, penetration testing. Apply risk-based management concepts to the supply chain, continued. When direct review of external entities is not viable, third-party assessment and monitoring can be used. ISO certified audits. CSA star evaluation. 8PA C16 SOC reports. Understand and apply threat modeling concepts and methodologies. Threat modeling, looking at an environment, system, or application from an attacker's viewpoint and trying to determine vulnerabilities the attacker would exploit. A popular threat model is STRIDE, which stands for spoofing, tampering, repudiation, information disclosure, DOS, elevation of privilege. Other models include Octave Trike, risks associated with hardware, software, and services. Risks associated hardware include theft, natural disaster, fire. Risks associated software include defects, lack of security, malware. Risks associated services include DOS/DDoS. Man in the middle. Social engineering. Minimum security requirements. Involve stakeholders in the development/acquisition/planning process as soon as possible, close to the start of the endeavor. Ensure that requirements are specific, realistic, and measurable. Record and document all elements of the discussion and outcome. Restate your understanding of customer requests back to them to confirm what they intended to say and what you comprehend. Don't choose tools or solutions until the requirements are understood. If possible, create diagrams, models, and prototypes to solidify mutual understanding of the requirements before commencing full-scale development and production. Service level requirements. Service level agreement, SLA, defines the minimum requirements of a business arrangement and codifies their provision. Every element of the SLA should include a discrete, objective, numeric metric with which to judge success or failure. Often used as a payment discriminator. Best serve recurring, continual requirements, not singular or infrequent events. Module 4. Compliance requirements. Module objectives. 1. Recognize the various forms of compliance requirements, laws/regulations, standards, and contracts. 2. Understand the concept of regulatory compliance, especially in the context of modern privacy requirements, and identify typical regulations encountered in practice. 3. Identify common privacy terms used in current personal data protection laws worldwide. Contractual, legal, industry standards, and regulatory requirements. Compliance, adherence to an external mandate. Privacy, the right of a human being to control the manner and extent to which information about him or her is distributed. Audit/auditing, the tools, processes, and activities used to perform compliance reviews. Contractual mandates. Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard, PCI DSS. Voluntary. Comprehensive and well-designed. Consequences enforced by the PCI Council. Multiple merchant levels. Requirements for protecting cardholder data, not saving the CVV. Legal standards. Case law sets precedents used in future cases. These can become legal standards the courts use to determine expectations such as due care. Industry standards. Set by industry participants and concerned entities. Can eventually evolve into a legal standard. May be accepted by regulators. Standards you should be familiar with. ISO. CSA star. Uptime Institute. Regulatory standards. Standards set by government bodies. Regulations you should know. GDPR. The Privacy Act, Australia. HIPAA. API, Japan. Personal Data Protection Law, Argentina. Personal Data Protection Law, Singapore. GLBA. PIPEDA. SOX. FISMA. Common Privacy Law Tenets. Notification. Participation. Scope. Limitation. Accuracy. Retention. Security. Dissemination. Module 5. Legal and regulatory issues that pertain to information. Security in a global context. Module objectives. 1. Recognize the role of digital rights management, DRM, solutions in protecting intellectual property. 2. Recognize modern international legal restrictions on import/export of data and IT tools. 3. Explain how modern legal frameworks affect international data flow and how the information security industry is responsible for many compliance requirements. Cyber crimes and data breaches. Sample crimes include malware, unauthorized access, ransomware, theft, illegal use of resources, fraud. Specific area of law that you should be familiar with: data breach notification, licensing and intellectual property requirements. Intellectual property, intangible assets. Use of someone else's intellectual property, including software, often requires licensing. Some forms of licensing: site, per seat, shareware. Public domain, not a license type, but a property type. Digital rights management, DRM. DRM, create an additional layer of access control within the organization for those files/datasets that contain proprietary material. DRM solution traits. Persistency. Continuous audit trail. Dynamic policy control. Interoperability. Automatic expiration. DRM solutions often require the use of a local agent installed on endpoint devices. Import/export controls. Some countries limit import of security tools, particularly encryption solutions, Russia, Brunei, Mongolia. International legal restrictions, Wassenaar Agreement. Some countries limit export, United States. Transporter data flow. International movement of data has become technically easier and faster, but more complicated legally. The General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR, prevents any EU citizens' privacy data from going to any country that does not have equivalent privacy law. GDPR compliance. Countries that have EU-style privacy laws. All EU countries. Andorra, Singapore, Switzerland, Japan, Israel, Australia, Argentina, Uruguay, Canada. GDPR compliance continued. Countries that don't. The United States, unless the entity subscribes to the Privacy Shield program. Everywhere else. Compliance exception: an organization may use standard contractual clauses and internal policy to stipulate GDPR compliance. Privacy terms. Personally identifiable information, PII, any data about a human being that could be used to identify that person. Examples, from various jurisdictions/statutes. Name. Tax identification number/social security number. Home address. Mobile telephone number. Specific computer data, MAC address, IP address of the user's machine. Privacy terms, continued. Data subject. The person who the PII refers to. Data owner/data controller. Entity that collects or creates the PII, legally responsible for protection of the data. Data processor. Creating, storing, sending, compiling, computing etc. On behalf of the owner. Data custodian. Manages data day-to-day, system admin, database admin, backup. Module 6. Security policy, standards, procedures and guidelines. Module objectives. 1. Describe the hierarchy of written governance, policies, standards, guidelines and processes. Policy/standards/procedures/guidelines. Policy, the written aspect of governance, including security governance. Standards, specific mandates explicitly stating expectations of performance or conformance. Guidelines, similar to standards in that they describe practices and expectations of activity to best accomplish tasks and attain goals. However, unlike standards, guidelines are not mandates but rather recommendations and suggestions. Procedures, explicit, repeatable activities to accomplish a specific task. Module 7. Personnel security policies and procedures. Module objectives. 1. Identify the various means to support personnel security goals, including common policies and procedures. Candidate screening and hiring. Detailed job descriptions. Checking references. Employment history. Background check. Financial profile. Employment agreements and policies. Employee Handbook. Employment Contract. Non-Disclosure Agreement, NDA. Onboarding and Termination Process. Onboarding tasks include review of the contract terms and job description. Formal initial training to familiarize the new employee with the organization's security policies and procedures. Signing NDA. Secure process for issuing the employee any access information or tools. Termination tasks include lock user account. Recover property. Exit interview. Review NDA. Vendor, consultant, and contractor agreements and controls. Additional contractual protections. Distinct accounts. Escort requirements. Distinguishing identification. NDA. Compliance policy requirements. Acceptable use policies, OPS common facets. Data access. System access. Data disclosure. Passwords. Data retention. Internet usage. Surveillance, within restraints of applicable law. Privacy policy requirements. Document organization's privacy requirements, within constraint of applicable laws. Available to employees/staff. Available to customers. Module 8. Security awareness, education, and training programs. Module objectives. 1. Describe the importance of security training, education, and awareness and how to differentiate between those elements. Forms of instruction. Education, formal classes, usually in an accredited academic institution outside the organization of employment, often with a degree program or professional certification. Training, semi-formal, usually offered by the organization itself, or by vendors, presented by subject matter experts, typically security practitioners. Awareness, informal and often unscheduled and not mandatory. Awareness elements typically are used to remind and encourage employees about operating in a secure manner. Methods and techniques to present awareness and training. Computer-based training. Live instruction. Reward mechanisms. Regular communications. Periodic content reviews. Any instruction must be kept current. The instructor should review the following on a regular basis. Applicable laws. Security tools. Organizational security policy. Recent widespread attack styles and methodology. Program effectiveness evaluation. Participant testing. Penetration testing. Log reviews. Module 9. Business continuity requirements. Module objectives. 1. Describe the necessity of business continuity and disaster recovery, BCDR, functions, and recognize basic foundational concepts. Business continuity requirements. Business continuity, BC, actions, processes, and tools for ensuring an organization can continue critical operations during a contingency. Disaster recovery, Dr., tasks and activities required to bring an organization back from contingency operations and reinstate regular operations. Often referred to jointly as BCDR. Develop and document scope and plan. Maximum allowable downtime, MAD, measure of how long an organization can survive an interruption of critical functions, also referred to as maximum tolerable downtime MTD. Recovery time objective, RTO, the target time set for recovering from any interruption. Recovery point objective, RPO, measure of how much data the organization can lose before the organization is no longer viable. Business impact analysis, BIA. BIA, the effort to determine the value of each asset belonging to the organization, as well as the potential risk of losing assets, the threats likely to affect the organization, and the potential for common threats to be realized. Methods include survey, financial audit, customer response, business impact analysis, BIA, continued. The organization, and the BIA in particular, benefits from information about potential threats and attacks. External business/security intelligence vendors. Open sources. Malware management firms. Government and industry feeds. Module 10. Professional ethics. Module objectives. 1. Explain the ethical standards to which a professional security practitioner will be expected to uphold, as well as the standards of behavior and performance expected of CISSP members. CISSP Code of Ethics. Preamble. The safety and welfare of society and the common good, duty to our principles, and to each other, requires that we adhere, and be seen to adhere, to the highest ethical standards of behavior. Therefore, strict adherence to this code is a condition of certification. ISC 2 Code of Ethics, continued. Protect society, the common good, necessary public trust and confidence, and the infrastructure. Act honorably, honestly, justly, responsibly, and legally. Provide diligent and competent service to principals. Advance and protect the profession. Member can lose certification for noncompliance. Organizational Code of Ethics. An organization can create internal guidance, as well, reflecting applicable law, social norms, and cultural mores. Example, from the guide. Is the admin's report acceptable and valid? What should be done with / to the employee? What should be done with / to the admin? Module 11. Domain Review. Domain Summary. Many of the concepts introduced in this domain will serve as the foundation for discussion throughout the rest of this guide. Be sure you have an understanding of the ideas so you can grasp the rest of the material. Domain Review Questions. 1. Alice has some data that is extremely valuable. She backs it up from her computer to a flash stick, and she puts the flash stick in a safe deposit box. Which two principles of the CIA Triad does this address? A. Confidentiality and integrity. B. Confidentiality and availability. C. Integrity and availability. D. Availability and non-repudiation. Answer. The correct answer is B. Alice is ensuring a form of availability by having a backup. If her laptop is lost, stolen, or malfunctions, she does not also lose the data, she can restore the saved data to another machine. She is also providing a form of confidentiality by locking up the flash stick. This practice deters the ability of others to access the flash stick. Note, this only provides confidentiality for the flash stick. We have no idea if she is also providing confidentiality to the data while it is live on her laptop. The question does not describe any practice that could constitute integrity protection, and the CIA Triad does not deal with non-repudiation. Domain Review Questions. 2. An organization's recovery time objective, RTO, must always be less than A. 12 hours. B. The time it takes to alert the public. C. The maximum allowable downtime, MADD. The duration allowed by regulators. Answer. The correct answer is C. The organization will cease to be viable once the MAD is reached. This is the definition of MAD. Therefore, the critical path must be recovered in less time than that, which is the definition of the RTO. No arbitrary time duration, such as answer A, is suitable for all organizations. Every organization will determine its own MAD and RTO. Likewise, regulators do not typically dictate RTO/MAD. Exception, critical infrastructure industries, such as power generation, may be subject to downtime stipulations. Public notification has no bearing on RTO. Domain Review Questions. 3. A security practitioner holding an ISC 2 certification is expected to first serve A. The client. B. The industry. C. ISC 2. D. Humanity. Answer. The correct answer is D. Human beings as individuals, and, on a larger scale, as a species, are the paramount concern of security practitioners. All the other answers should receive lesser importance. Domain Review Questions. 4. Bob is the security manager for an online retailer. To protect the customer data they are entrusted with, Bob requires all personnel to attend security training sessions regularly. Bob documents and tracks which personnel have attended training, and he suspends account access for those personnel who have missed training. Which of the following answers does this best typify? A. Due care. B. Due diligence. C. Legal duty. D. Reasonable expectation. Answer. The correct answer is B. The evidence of providing due care is due diligence. The documentation of who attends training is evidentiary support. Due care is the legal duty owed to the customers. In this scenario, that would be don't allow unauthorized disclosures of customer privacy data. Due diligence is any action that supports this duty, so answer B is preferable to answers A and C. Reasonable expectation is what the customer should have when they take part in the transaction. In this situation, that would be, my personal information will be protected, so answer D is not optimum. Domain Review Questions. 5. Whenever an organization chooses to perform risk mitigation to address a particular risk, what other form of risk management will also be included? A. Risk transference. B. Risk avoidance. C. Risk capture. D. Risk acceptance. Answer. The correct answer is D. Risk mitigation always leaves some residual risk. The purpose of risk mitigation is to get risk down to an acceptable level. Domain Review Questions. 6. In order to comply with the Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard, PCI DSS, what data element must not be stored for any length of time beyond the transaction? A. Cardholder's name. B. Social Security number. C. IP address. D. Card verification value CVV. Answer. The correct answer is D. PCI DSS prohibits storage of the CVV for any time beyond the transaction. Domain review questions. 7. Which of the following security tools would probably best help an organization protect its proprietary software? A. Intrusion Prevention System, IPSB Anti-Malware Suite. C. Digital Rights Management Solution, DRMD Web Application Firewall, WAF. Answer. The correct answer is C. DRM solutions are designed to protect intellectual property. Domain review questions. 8. Which of the following is usually perceived as having the highest level of precedence for an organization? A. Policy. B. Guidelines. C. Procedures. D. Standards. Answer. The correct answer is A. Policy is the written form of governance, and is promulgated by senior management of the organization, as a way of describing the organization's strategic vision and goals. Domain review questions. 9. Which of the following describes a personnel security tool that should not require the employee's signature? A. Non-disclosure agreement, NDA. Personnel security policy. C. Acceptable use policy, AUPD contract. Answer. The correct answer is B. The organization's security policy is promulgated by senior management, and all personnel must comply with it. The employee does not need to sign it. All the other answers are tools which should include the employee's signature. Domain review questions. 10. Which of the following is not a recommended method for delivering security instruction? A. Computer-based training. B. Rote memorization. C. Live training. D. Reward mechanisms. Answer. The correct answer is B. Rote memorization of security material is not a common method for delivering instruction. All the other answers are recommended methods for delivering security instruction.